Why did this happen?
When the beautiful employee Ms. White visited a client's company, she voiced her confusion. It was because the documents she had prepared were completely tampered with. If this continues, the negotiation might be halted, and the contract could be terminated. Although the atmosphere had been almost certain, it was now a bad situation.
Excuse me, what happened here?
Hearing the voice of a puzzled male employee, I supported Ms. White. Fortunately, it seems that she received a high evaluation from the other party.
Please, give the same presentation to the others as well.
I gave the same explanation to the other employees. The one looking frustrated was the manager who had sabotaged us. What she did, something that should not have been done, would lead her to face severe consequences. My name is Sam Williams. I am a 45-year-old ordinary office worker. My hobby is reading, and I read a broad range of books, from major to minor ones. As a child, I was treated as an oddity by the adults around me. Probably because, unlike a typical boy, I didn't care for common interests and only read challenging books. While boys my age discussed comics and video games, I was engrossed in books that could win literary awards. Concerned about my relentless reading of complex texts from a young age, my parents had me undergo special testing, which revealed an IQ of 200, significantly higher than average. However, strangely, my parents were not pleased with this fact. They wanted me to live like a normal child. Thus, as I grew older, I began to hide my abilities. So, seeing how different I was, my parents must have been worried.
Sam, won't you go outside and play with everyone else? Why don't you visit a friend's house?
Do you want any comics or anime? I can buy them for you.
I guess they were concerned I might be ostracized or bullied by other kids. But back then, I couldn't understand my parents' feelings and just immersed myself in what I loved. If things had continued that way, I might have grown up to be a terribly ungrateful son, but I avoided that path thanks to a male teacher I met in middle school.
Williams, you seem very intelligent.
But remember, there are many things in this world that can't be achieved by intelligence alone. You can't defy someone superior, nor outfight someone stronger. There are many hurdles intelligence alone can't overcome. Because he reasoned with me like this, I began to look towards others. Being smart doesn't mean you can outsmart a prime minister or a president. And you certainly can't stand against a gang of thugs alone. Indeed, there are many things in the world that intelligence alone cannot achieve. Hearing my teacher's words, I started to see things I had never noticed before. From that day on, I began to pay attention to my parents' feelings and the daily lives of the people around me. As an adult, I have not had a day when I did not appreciate that teacher's advice. Thanks to his words, at 45, I managed to get along reasonably well with others. I hope to continue doing well, but life does not always go as planned. This is because a problematic boss has come to my department, causing issues. When the cherry blossoms fell and the branches began to sprout light green leaves, I was greeted at work by a new female colleague.
Good morning, Mr. Williams.
Her name is Ms. White Nancy. She's in her 20s and apparently enjoys collecting children's books. Lately, she's been reading a children's book featuring an unattractive genius and a not-so-smart good person. Though it's for children, the content is intriguing enough for adults, and she occasionally shares her thoughts with me. She's a hard worker and very serious about her job, so she works diligently every day, trying to learn. As a new employee, she does make some mistakes, but she catches on quickly and shows great promise. Most of my colleagues in the sales department have a good impression of her. However, not everyone feels that way.
Ms. White, you're too loud. It's great that you're energetic, but please don't shout unnecessarily. I have a hangover,
said Director Smith Rachel. with a pained expression as if enduring a headache. Director Smith doesn't seem to think highly of Ms. White and often makes snide remarks at every opportunity. But this time, it's her own fault. It's her poor self-management to blame, so she really shouldn't be complaining,
I'm sorry.
said the conscientious Ms. White, apologizing to Director Smith.
You get a lot of attention because you're pretty, but I'm going to be tough on you. Don't get cocky.
I'm not getting cocky.
Ms. White was disheartened by Director Smith's words. Indeed, Ms. White possesses a beauty that could captivate anyone's gaze. She may benefit from her looks, but that's not the only reason she's well liked in this department.
You're a new employee and still have a lot to learn. There's a study session coming up, so make sure you attend, okay?
Yes, I understand.
Director Smith ordered that she attend the study session after work, which was supposed to be optional. Watching this, I felt indescribable emotions. She shouldn't have to listen to such arbitrary demands, yet Ms. White complied quietly. A few days later, I attended a study session to learn sales techniques from a male colleague who was excelling at our branch. Ms. White, commanded by Director Smith, was also there. This session was for new employees, but it was open for senior employees to join as well. So I decided to participate for future benefits.
So, these are the basic points. Make sure you are well groomed to not discomfort others,
said the speaker, a man named Brown Mike. In his late 20s, he has a youthful appearance and looks like someone who could grace the cover of a fashion magazine. He leads in sales performance at the branch, and one reason might be his looks.
Well, I've explained various things, but apparently, I'm considered handsome, and that has helped me in sales, he acknowledged.
It seems he is aware of it, but does not flaunt it, and he works hard on the aspects that require effort, which probably makes him more likable.
Next, I'll explain what you should be cautious about when dealing with clients.
During the session, Ms. White was taking diligent notes. Not just that, she was actively asking questions about things that intrigued her. Seeing Ms. White's eagerness to absorb new knowledge motivates me not to fall behind. Time flew by, and the study session ended quickly. I was packing up my stationery like notes and pens. That's when Brown, looking surprised, spoke to Ms. White.
Ms. White, right, you're quite different from the image I had heard about.
I know Director Smith a bit and had heard quite a bit about you.
About me?
Yes, the stories weren't very flattering, so seeing you in person is a surprise.
You know, things heard from others aren't always true. It turns out he is quite familiar with our director. I wonder what Director Smith has been saying about Ms. White. But from Brown's expression, it was clear it wasn't anything good.
Be careful, it seems Director Smith doesn't think very highly of you.
Yes, I had a feeling Director Smith didn't like me.
Ms. White said, looking down sadly. As I watched her, Brown turned to speak to me.
That's you, Mr. Williams, right?
I was surprised to hear my name called out while I was packing up my stationery.
Yes, I'm Williams, Sam.
Watching this study session, I could tell you are a sharp thinker.
Really?
Brown spoke to me in a low voice, surprising me further.
You seem to be thinking about multiple things at once and processing various pieces of information.
You appear to be good at multitasking, and your calculation speed seems fast. Indeed, during the session, when Brown asked me a question, I responded while the new employee next to me seemed confused about what to note down. He probably missed part of the conversation. So, right after I answered, I quietly explained the relevant part to him, which Brown must have noticed.
While you were answering my question, you were also thinking about something else.
And when I asked everyone to calculate a transaction amount, you finished first. It was during a mental math exercise given verbally by him that everyone solved simultaneously. I was caught off guard and solved it immediately, although I usually take a bit more time. Brown's ability to achieve top sales performance at the branch must also be due to his exceptional observational skills.
Please look after Ms. White. She is very earnest and likely a great employee, but that might also make her struggle.
Losing such a promising talent would be a loss for the company as well.
Yes, of course, as she's part of our team.
Having someone so promising under his care, Ms. White's future seems promising. However, her relationship with Director Smith is a concern. I wish they could at least interact normally, if not amicably. A small worry lingers in my mind. As expected, reality isn't so simple. In the past few days, every time Director Smith has made a snide remark to Ms. White, I've been there to support her. It seems related to the incident during the study session. Director Smith once complained to another department head.
I have an employee who's close to me, but he overly defends Ms. White whenever I point out her flaws. He gently counters me.
There must have been something at that study session. She's deceitfully using her feminine wiles. She probably lets her imagination run wild and creates her own narratives. I wanted to disagree immediately, but I didn't have the courage to correct her in the face of her vehement anger.
Ms. White, please move these documents over there. You can handle that, right?
Yes, right away.
I'll help you too.
Director Smith's harassment has increased, and as a result, I've been talking to Ms. White more than before. Before Brown asked me, I sometimes did nothing, thinking it might be overstepping. There were times I really wanted to help, but I restrained myself from helping too much. So now, although it's a bit hard, I feel more at ease. Just being asked to help someone makes a big difference. That day too, I was supporting Ms. White when Director Smith made a snide remark to her.
You shouldn't take it too seriously. Director Smith is probably just envious and saying things because of that.
Do you think so? I'm always worried whether I'm actually useful to everyone.
But Ms. White seems to have a very low self-esteem. She always looks unsure if she's doing her job right, and she takes Director Smith's sarcasm seriously.
Why do you lack so much confidence? From my perspective, it looks like you're doing a great job.
Doubting, I asked her a question. At times like this, I regret that my past was spent mostly reading books. If I had spent more time with my peers, maybe I would have known the right words to say.
Actually, my school was...
Ms. White began to reply to my question. But before she could finish, Director Smith appeared.
Ms. White comes from a low-ranked high school, so she dislikes being thought of as unintelligent.
But it's true, so she can't help it. We can't change the past. We must accept it. Director Smith probably overheard our conversation and spoke loudly enough for the whole department to hear. It's cruel to speak of someone's past in such a way.
Being beautiful, you've probably gotten by on charm until now, but that won't work in the real world.
Don't rely on your looks to manipulate men. Upon hearing this, I got instantly furious. Colleagues around us also looked at Director Smith with disdain.
Speaking of which, Mr. Williams, you didn't graduate from a notable school either, did you? Birds of a feather flock together.
Fools do best to stick with fools. It's certainly better than trying to ensnare someone handsome like Mr. Brown. I couldn't help but frown deeply at her words. With my high IQ, I could have attended a better school if I had wanted to. However, I didn't because my parents wanted me to live a normal life. So, I just went to the closest decent school from our home. Somehow, it felt like my parents were being disparaged too, and I felt irritated inside. Director Smith, whether she knew what I was feeling or not, continued to speak.
That's right.
For Ms. White, who tends to be pampered, I'll assign her a job that fits her perfectly next time. I'll let her handle a deal with one of our clients. Make sure you secure the contract without trying to charm or push your work onto others.
Isn't that a disrespectful way to speak to Ms. White?
Mr. Williams, it's okay, really.
She told me, despite the upsetting content. If she didn't want to retaliate, then perhaps there was nothing left for me to do. I could still somewhat tolerate being disparaged myself. A week later, Ms. White was fully engaged in preparing for the deal with the client. Though I thought it wasn't something a new employee should handle, she was eager.
If I work hard, I'm sure Director Smith will recognize my efforts, she said.
Ms. White was working overtime every day to prepare for the deal. I helped her as much as I could, but Director Smith's gaze was icy.
Anyone can make it look like they're working hard. I need to see actual results of work.
She continued to pressure Ms. White. As the day of the meeting approached, this deal was fairly significant for our company. If successful, it could bring our company a profit of $1 billion. Yet, despite my protests, Director Smith would not consider anyone else but the new employee.
It's not too late to assign this to an experienced veteran.
The client is very strict about contract details and manners. It's too much for a new employee.
No, Ms. White will handle it. Don't interfere with decided matters.
She stubbornly refused to delegate the task to someone else. However, the stakes were too high not to accompany them, so both Director Smith and I decided to go with her to the negotiations. As expected, Director Smith was very strict. Before we even left for the client's company, she was giving Ms. White tough guidance on preparations and manners.
Make sure you handle it properly, no matter what happens. Never stop smiling.
Yes, I understand, Ms. White replied.
However, for some reason, by the time we arrived at the client's company, Director Smith seemed to be in a suspiciously good mood. Her demeanor had softened. I found her behavior odd, but there was no time to inquire further. Later, I would regret not delving deeper into it, but time cannot be rewound. Upon arriving at the client's company, we were made to wait for a few minutes. During this time, while Ms. White was checking the time on her smartphone, Director Smith made some suspicious movements, but I couldn't address it because soon after, the male employee in charge joined us and the meeting began. We started with harmless small talk, sharing updates about our respective situations, before moving on to the main agenda. Ms. White was somewhat awkward throughout but managed to keep the conversation going.
I see, by implementing our machinery, it would lead to profits for our company, she conveyed.
Yes, it's a special machine, crafted with our finest technology.
We would appreciate if you consider its implementation, she added confidently. I had heard that this client was quite strict, but it seemed they were somewhat lenient given that a new employee was involved and minor mistakes were overlooked. The deal was almost certainly going to be finalized, based on the way the discussions were proceeding. However, the smooth proceedings only lasted until about 30 minutes into the main topic, when something unexpected happened.
Why did this happen?
Ms. White exclaimed in surprise, prompting me to check on her. She was looking at the documents in her hands, seemingly lost for words. Peeking at the documents she was staring at, I realized something horrendous. The content of the documents was completely nonsensical. This could lead to the nearly finalized contract being cancelled.
Is there a problem?
Asked the male client in a puzzled tone, to which I quickly responded, No, there is no issue at all.
I'll take over explaining the contract details from here.
Given the high level of specialization involved, it might be too much for her since she has just joined us. I smoothly interjected. I was glad I had reviewed the documents Ms. White was supposed to handle beforehand. I continued the presentation smoothly. It seemed that my explanation made a good impression on the client. The impressed male employee then requested,
Please, give the same presentation to the others as well.
Glancing at Director Smith, I noticed her watching the proceedings intently, her expression turning to one of frustration. Something about her behavior felt out of place in this context. However, I couldn't dwell on suspicions forever. Responding to the male employee's request, I agreed to repeat the same explanation in another room where other employees had gathered. On the way there, passing through a long corridor, an incident occurred. A worker who was checking the surveillance cameras approached Ms. White.
You dropped this, he said.
Thank you.
She responded, simply retrieving her dropped handkerchief from the worker. Little did I know that this small event would later be misinterpreted and used in such a peculiar way. But for now, that was irrelevant. In the separate room, with Ms. White's help, I spread out the documents again. There was a projector, so I asked her to set up the documents.
Could you please arrange the documents in order of the discussion?
Yes, I'll display each one as we go along.
Having Ms. White efficiently handle the documents was truly a relief. I managed to deliver the presentation succinctly, omitting any unnecessary details. After I finished, the employees applauded, clearly moved.
That was a very clear explanation. I wish we could speak like that, one commented.
True, there was no need to even ask questions, another added.
I let out a small sigh of relief, unnoticed by them. It seemed to have gone well. However, when I glanced at Director Smith, she was glaring at me, which gave me a bad feeling. It had been an exhausting time, but we returned to the company. We still had to meet several times to discuss the details, but considering the client's attitude, it should be fine. I was confident about the success of the deal. Yet, Ms. White, who hadn't been able to complete her presentation, was very downcast, and I felt the need to support her. During a break, I approached her.
Don't be too hard on yourself. What happened was unforeseen.
Yes, but Mr. Williams, you handled it perfectly because you were well prepared. Maybe I could have done it too if I tried harder.
What would be the right way to encourage her in this situation? Even my teachers during my school years told me, no matter how smart you are, there are many things you just can't handle. I decided to reveal something I had kept secret until now to her.
Others probably can't do the same as me.
Actually, I've kept quiet until now, but my IQ is 200, which is higher than most people's.
What do you mean?
Ms. White asked, surprised. I carefully explained about myself, how I was classified as a gifted child, and how I lived a different life from other kids. Ms. White listened with a stunned expression.
Sometimes I see such people on TV, but I never really thought they existed. But why did you keep it a secret?
Because I was taught that being smart doesn't solve everything, I replied.
Ms. White looked puzzled as I briefly shared an interaction I had with a male teacher. She nodded in understanding, saying,
For someone who wants to lead a normal life, being too intelligent can be a hindrance.
And like every coin has two sides, having a high IQ comes with its downsides. She really understood quickly. Even from our brief conversation, she seemed to grasp what I was trying to convey. I'm sure she will continue to grow and improve from here. I wanted to convey that there's no need to be pessimistic.
So, Mr. Williams, you're hiding that fact and working as a regular employee, she realized.
That's right.
If there had been another employee there, I doubt they could have handled it as well. I'm an exception. Don't be too hard on yourself for your perceived shortcomings. You're still new here. I explained, hoping my words reached her.
Thank you for the encouragement.
Ms. White replied, her expression softening slightly with a smile. I then brought up a children's book she had mentioned earlier.
Speaking of which, I read that children's book you talked about.
The one with the unsightly genius and the not-so-smart good person, I continued.
Yes, that's the one, she confirmed.
I think the king in that book was a bad person.
Even though he was a genius, he was arrogant and didn't consider others. But the not-so-smart villagers were always hard-working and caring about their fellow villagers. I prefer that kind, I shared. She looked genuinely pleased by my comments.
Mr. Williams, you seem like a flawless, heroic king, like a hero, she said.
That makes me blush. But actually, this was all triggered by something Mr. Brown said, I confessed.
Mr. Brown did.
Feeling embarrassed as if I was taking all the credit, I started to explain how it all began. If Mr. Brown hadn't approached me, I might still be wondering whether it was okay to help Ms. White.
There was such a thing. I must thank Mr. Brown too, she responded.
However, I'm worried that if this harassment from Director Smith continues, she may become overly stressed. She's too conscientious and might eventually break down. As we were discussing this, during a break, Director Smith, who was eating her lunch at her desk, raised her voice dramatically.
Oh no, I've spilled my tea, Ms. White. Could you bring something to wipe it up?
Looking around, I saw other employees near Director Smith. Yet, she specifically called on Ms. White.
You just messed up at work, so it's only natural you do this.
She added, seemingly another act of harassment. I stopped Ms. White from reflexively moving and walked towards Director Smith myself, giving her a stern look.
How can someone who tampered with their subordinates' documents say such a thing? I confronted her.
Oh, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you mean.
Director Smith replied, feigning ignorance.
Are you suggesting Ms. White prepared such nonsensical documents on purpose?
It was a mistake that couldn't have happened if she had prepared normally. I defended her. I had helped her with the preparations, and had seen firsthand that she had organized the documents properly. Once, I even witnessed Director Smith near Ms. White's belongings acting suspiciously, so it's clear who the culprit could be.
Please stop harassing her. Isn't it shameful as a human being?
Without evidence, such accusations are baseless. Isn't it you who should be embarrassed, accusing an innocent person?
Director Smith retorted with a disdainful smile.
The nerve of someone who graduated from a no-name school, a nobody trying to stand up to a manager like me, she scoffed.
I couldn't inform others about Director Smith's wrongdoing in the current situation. Even if I argue about the circumstances, I can't definitively prove it was her doing. As I was biting my lip, Ms. White approached with a determined expression.
Then, I'll ask the client's company to check the surveillance footage, she declared boldly.
What are you thinking? Causing trouble for our client?
I'm sorry, but if we continue to let Director Smith's actions go unchecked, it won't just be my problem, she reasoned.
I had never seen Ms. White speak with such a firm attitude before. What kind of change had happened in her heart?
This time went well, but there was a real risk we might not have been able to make the deal.
And since I've caused trouble for you, Mr. Williams, I don't want to burden anyone else with similar issues in the future, she said. Director Smith seemed taken aback by Ms. White's unexpected counter.
I was checking the documents when I left the company, so if any tampering happened, it must have been in limited possible occasions.
Checking the security cameras should confirm it. Plus, I know someone who checks those cameras. Maybe they could help us if I ask, Ms. White continued. Hearing this, Director Smith's face paled. She might be recalling the incident in the hallway when Ms. White dropped her handkerchief, and it was picked up by the worker, an event that seemed innocuous but now suspicious to her. Director Smith, pale-faced, grabbed Ms. White's shoulder.
Stop it. What good will that do? This issue was your mistake. You thought you prepared properly, but you didn't.
That's all there is to it. Don't make a big deal out of it. She was clearly flustered. It seemed more likely than ever that Director Smith was the culprit. I may still struggle at times with communication like any ordinary person, but I've lived more than 40 years for a reason. I understand well the desperation of a cornered person.
Director Smith, please apologize now. There might still be a chance to make things right.
Director Smith glared at me. Her face twisted with humiliation. However, realizing the gravity of the situation, she reluctantly apologized to Ms. White.
I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please forgive me. It was just a momentary lapse. You know, everyone has their bad days, right?
However, what Director Smith said hardly qualified as an apology. It was more an excuse than anything, and it was frustrating to hear.
If you don't offer a sincere apology, things could get much worse.
I warned her. In response, Director Smith, looking panicked, bowed her head repeatedly.
I'm sorry, it was all my fault. Please, let's not make a big deal out of this.
Ms. White, ever magnanimous, forgave her.
I'm fine. I will accept normal guidance, because I know I am still learning.
But please, no more harassment that affects others, she said. With that, the issue seemed resolved. However, this incident would gradually begin to change Director Smith's standing within the company. Previously feared and kept at a distance by her subordinates, Director Smith gradually started to be looked down upon. Regardless, Ms. White's courage is something to behold.
You really did well, but it surprised me how you seemed to transform suddenly, I said.
Seeing you take initiative, Mr. Williams, inspired me to step up.
But bluffing was hard. I was worried I'd slip up, she confessed.
What, you were bluffing? When?
All this time, I hadn't noticed any falsehood in her statements.
Actually, saying I knew someone who could check the security cameras was a lie.
If you didn't notice, then it must have been convincing, Ms. White whispered to me.
I had no idea. You might have a real talent for acting, I remarked, amazed.
Previously seen as overly serious and timid, her audacity was a revelation. Afterward, Director Smith's behavior became noticeably subdued, as if her previous demeanor was an act. It seems she was truly frightened of being exposed. As a result, she started to be disrespected by her subordinates, suffering from various forms of harassment, which she probably deserved.
Director Smith, please pull yourself together.
You are the manager, after all. You really need to pick up the pace, they would chide her.
She always picked on the young women. Maybe that's why she couldn't handle her job properly.
When the victim simply changed to her. I warned my colleagues, but before the situation improved, Director Smith stopped coming to the office and went off the grid. She probably couldn't handle the change. I don't know what she's doing or where she is now, but rumor has it she's living quietly in the countryside. I hope this situation has led her to reflect and start anew. With Director Smith gone, we got a new boss.
Hello, I'm your new boss starting today. I was suddenly made the manager, so I might be a bit shaky, but I'll do my best.
He's quite laid back compared to his predecessor, but he doesn't show favoritism or belittle anyone. He's a hard worker and gradually gained acceptance from everyone in our department. As a result, the atmosphere in our department has softened considerably. And the change didn't stop there. It turns out that Ms. White and Mr. Brown started dating. It seems Mr. Brown had fallen for her at first sight and went all out to win her over.
I regret not being able to support you when you needed it.
But from now on, as your life partner, I promise to protect you, he declared.
You say you couldn't support me, but that's not true.
I heard from Mr. Williams, knowing that you cared meant a lot to me. Ms. White responded gratefully. After a few dates, it seems Ms. White and Mr. Brown have developed quite a rapport, and marriage might not be far off. I had a slight interest in Ms. White, but seeing her happy with someone she loves is what truly matters. I realized I had been harboring a faint romantic feeling towards her, understanding now the pain of unrequited love. However, I wouldn't dream of disrupting the happiness of two people in love. I chose not to disclose my feelings and simply wished them well on their new journey together. Meanwhile, I continue to lead an ordinary life. I go to a regular job and work like everyone else, despite my high IQ, which some might think is underutilized. But for me, this is sufficient. As my parents wished, I plan to keep living a normal life.
Dad, Mom, you're always on the phone for so long, I remarked during one of our calls.
It can't be helped.
You're in the city, and we're in the countryside. We worry about you since we're apart. How's everything at work? Are you keeping healthy?
Don't push yourself too hard. Just because you're capable of many things doesn't mean you have to do them all, they advised.
I don't desire special treatment because of my intelligence. Nor do I want to climb the corporate ladder and wield power like Director Smith did, doing whatever I pleased. Being part of the community and living normal, everyday life is what truly makes me happy.